In today's video, we are taking the 20-80 principle to an extreme level to supercharge your productivity. Hello and welcome. My name is Peter B and I welcome you here at My First Million, where we are achieving our financial goals together. Yes, today we are talking about productivity and especially how to use the 80-20 rule in order to boost the productivity. But we are not just using the 80-20 principle. We do some fine-tuning and supercharging the 80-20 principle. But before we go into the details on how to do that, let's take a quick look at what exactly the 80-20 principle is. So here we have the definition. The 80-20 rule is also called the Pareto Principle. So if you hear sometimes the terminology Pareto Principle, you will know that this is basically the same. And what does the 80-20 rule covers or say? It basically just say 80% of all outcomes come from 20% of causes. And this was a Mr. Pareto, his name was Pareto, who found out that in many aspects in life, there's a 80-20 ratio behind it. So let's consider some examples. For example, often 20% of your customers are generating 80% of your revenues. Or maybe 20% of a company's products are generating 80% of the revenue. Then another example could be 20% of the drivers are causing 80% of the car accidents. Or another example, maybe 20% of the factories in a country are responsible for 80% of the pollution coming out of factories. So there are many areas where you can use the 80-20 principle. But the interesting part is you can also use it in productivity. So 80% of your results are generated with just around 20% of your efforts. And now let's take this to an even extremer level. This is an overview when it comes to productivity. You see, if you put in 100% of effort, you will get 100% of results. However, often you maybe don't need to strive for perfection. Your quality of work maybe doesn't require you 100%. Maybe 80% is good enough. And in order to achieve 80%, roughly you just put in 20% of effort. Of course, these are only rough estimations depending on what you're working on. It could be quite different. But at least there's a discrepancy there. That at the beginning, what you put in will lead to much higher portion of results. And then you can also supercharge this by even cut it down more. What if you only put in 4% of your efforts? If the 80-20 rule holds true, then you would already be achieving 64% of your results. And if you just put in 1% of effort, you can already achieve 50% of the results. As said, of course this is just a rough estimation and highly depends on the situation and what you're working on. But it should be a good reminder for us that we always need to consider where we want to put our efforts into and what results are required, what standard of quality is required. Maybe it's better to do 5 things with 20% of efforts into all of those 5 things and then just do one thing to perfection. So when it comes to evaluating what are you working on, how much effort you're putting in, what are the results that you're achieving, always keep this in mind. Where can you optimize? And therefore improve our output. In the long term, I'm sure this will help your career. What are your thoughts on the 80-20 principle? Especially, do you think is the 80-20 principle holding true also in terms of productivity? At least I believe yes, but I would be happy to hear from you. And is it even possible, in your opinion, to cut it down further to 4% to achieve over 60% of results? Please write in the comments below. If you still have some doubts, maybe you can take into consideration how long it usually takes to become a master in a field. I think there's a common statistics out there. In order to master one field, you need to put in 10,000 hours. So for instance, if you want to become a professional piano player, maybe you need to put in 10,000 hours of piano practice. However, if you just put in 2,000 of practice, you will most likely be a very, very decent piano player. Maybe you will not be comparable with the best of the best, and maybe you will not hold any large concerts in concert halls, but you will be still considered as a very good player when common people hear you playing. If you're still not convinced, there's another saying. If you read just 3 books of one topic, just 3 books of one topic, usually you will know more on this topic than 99% of all people out there. So you will already close to be considered as an expert in that field. So the 80-20 principle also applies in that area, because it's often not how well you know things in absolute terms or how good you're doing things in absolute terms, but it's a comparison to what it is expected and what other people are doing. So you don't need to strive for perfection, you just need to strive for fulfilling the expectations, or maybe slightly over fulfilling the expectations given to you. Thanks a lot for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and especially I look forward to seeing you winning financially.